Thank you, Gerwin. Once again, nice to meet you here. Well, the purpose of this talk is just to emphasize or talk about some topics of your conference about fiction, but other things regarding cinema, if they're okay, if you're okay with that. Before getting here, I was reading, and I believe that it's a chronicle written by Joan Didion.
By Joan Didion, yes.
On her White Album.
Yeah.
And she said something that I really like, I wanted to share with you. And it says, we tell ourselves stories in order to live. We interpret what we see, select the most workable of the multiple choices. We live entirely by the imposition of narrative lying upon disparate images, by the ideas with which we have learned to freeze the shifting phantasmagoria, which is our actual experience. And I was reminding and looking at my notes of your work yesterday, and I was thinking, well, is there something that is vital in the idea of fiction? Do we need fiction to live here in this world of despair or this beautiful world? How are you seeing it?
I always refer to and it's an anecdote in this case, which is unfortunately that a friend of mine met David Thomas, the singer of Perubu, the avant-garde punk band, and then he asked some questions, and then another question, because he was like such a in awe of his idol. And then David said, who was a very kind, sweet man, he said to my friend, hard questions tend not to be answered. so which is partly also the I think the both because what Didion wrote is dense and I don't completely immediately understand but I get the drift. And I don't have a clear theoretical answer to these questions. I mean, I'm not a university teacher, which is where you have to put it into words like this. So if I had to, and if I was appointed teacher somewhere, and then you start to find words or that you can just fall back to, say, or this is my definition of fiction, whatever you do with it. But I was never I was always in a luxury position to not have to answer that question fully, but just to research it, to circle it, to move around it, at least in my work as programmer. Maybe if you have a run-in with the tech services, then it becomes important whether something is fiction or not, and then it becomes a legal thing. What is true? What and some things that are true are not legally true. So then, but in my work, in a way, you could still keep a distance to the real hard answer, which also is deeply my conviction that there is no full. So there are no fixed lines. You say this is fiction, this is not fiction, because like in literature you have the distinction fiction, non-fiction, which in cinema we don't use. So at least not in terms of labeling or marketing. In a bookstore, you can go to the non-fiction department. In cinema, then you end up with documentary. But documentary is like I said. I mean, it's for instance, if you compare it to literature, would you find a Sebald book in the non-fiction?
That's something difficult. I believe sometimes you can find it in fiction or in non-fiction.
So this depends just on the bookseller, where he puts it or how he perceives it. I would never put it there, but which doesn't mean that non-fiction doesn't exist. I think documentary in a way, it does exist as a as a as a as a film language, which is and then there's this strange term, creative documentary, which are as if let's say the documentary, the traditional documentary is not creative, fiction, non-fiction, creative, non-creative, which then would make it like a non-art thing, like more like an artisan thing, or which you could just follow the rules and follow to like as if documentary is looking for truth, and that creative documentary is not looking for this. So then you run into all these definitions of what is truth, what is fiction, what is real. Reality plays, of course, a huge role in this. And I'm sure some philosophers will be very precise and incomprehensible when they write about these things. As I quoted Wittgenstein on the Caninian and on the rabbit duck thing, which does not mean that I even claim to understand most of Wittgenstein. There are just elements that I thought, okay, but this is really interesting for me, for a certain thinking about it, and then you dig in, and then sometimes things are not so difficult after all, such as the distinction that he makes between seeing that and seeing as. So, which then fits a certain purpose in my thinking, that you can think about fiction as seeing something as, and that you can see documentary as seeing that or so. Whether that's really important to understand and appreciate a film, I'm doubtful. But sometimes it's fun to theorize and to talk about these things. And maybe it helps other people to understand something deeper.
I believe yes, because sometimes categories tend to be something that we need to be fixated, or we need to just to clarify, and we believe that the absolute clarification is going to lead us somewhere, but in the end I think sometimes those fixed categories are just like like handcuff ourselves in our thinking sometimes.
Very, it happens very quickly. So something that's at first an interesting idea, then suddenly it solidifies or it crystallizes into something that's actually not helpful, but resists into understanding.
That's great. And thinking about leaving aside these ideas of categories, I was wondering, because I don't know you so well, but what was the thing that trapped you, that in some enchanted you, is the best word that I want to use, enchanted you with cinema, and that lead you in this process of believing, well, I like to organize programs in terms of certain films. What I like to do is share all the ideas of others and think about them.
Because it pays so well.
Truly?
But still, it's not. It is no. But I could argue that I drifted into it. But my first. So as many cinephiles will remember vividly the first time, let's say, they saw Bambi, 3 years old, and then give a complete Bazinian understanding of what Disney does. But I was not like that at all. I didn't care too much for. So of course, I wasn't. We lived in the countryside. My parents would not take me to the cinema, so I was quite late going to the cinema in the first place. So not as a kid. And my first exposure to, let's say, cinema that is that I thought was also really interesting was maybe through TV, where you see. There are some films that I saw on television as a as a young teenager, or maybe like Salaire de la Peur, which made this enormous impression. But not that I then thought I have to move into cinema, because this was not let's say on my, where I'm from, this was not on the option list. My father was a dairy farmer, and so then when I went to university, I first started to go to medical school. So I still didn't. Then some friends asked whether I wanted to join them in making a small film for to introduce first-year students to some things, and we had got some money, and we could do also some fiction, which was fun. But I never thought that cinema would be something you could do with your life. But I did start to, once in university, in those days, a student would just go and see all the new films, also art house. It's just something you did that was part of the let's say, the lifestyle. So, and then I started to watch let's say, the repertoire and the older stuff, because these art house theaters, they would show the new things, but also the Rossellini's and the Bressons and the Hitchcocks, that they would just, and only then I really got, let's say, then you have some epiphanies watching films, and then life goes on. You start. I decided I did not want to be a doctor. I didn't know what I wanted to be, but then I started to make a living writing, editing, not film editing, but as editor, and which in those days you could still quite easily make a living. Now nobody pays. And then I started to write reviews for a national newspaper, and then I was asked to join the Rotterdam Film Festival, and then at some point I had to decide whether I wanted to extend the work with the paper or with the festival, and then I decided the festival, and then I worked for 26 years full-time for IDFR. So it's not a heroic story at all. It's just something. I don't know.
But that's actually something that I like, because sometimes I feel tired of this like heroic or epiphanic, but from the beginning, no, I saw the first film that changed my whole life. But in the end, I believe we make those
But
stories.
there are of course films that, even if the nature of epiphanies, at least my epiphanies, is very mundane, because you have them, and then something changes. You briefly realize you walk out of a cinema and something has changed in the way you see the world, and then it's gone. But you know something has changed, but it's very hard to really reconstruct how you saw before, because in this way it's religious. You are changed, like Saul, Paul. You are changed, but what? So and of course, as you grow older, these moments are rarer and rarer. The last time I think the last two films three films, okay. The last, but is from this century, maybe only three. So, which is not to say that these are my all-time favorite films, but they did produce some sort of, let's say, shift. That walking out, you think something changed. So I understand some things that I didn't understand before, even if I will refuse to say what these things are, but which is during. One of the Apchatpong films, but I have to the one about the doctor and his based on his parents. I will look it up in a moment. I forget the title. And then Café Lumière, and Hard to Be a God by Gerwin. But it's I'm sure I think and for instance, we were talking also late yesterday a bit about the sight and sound, or the international cinephilia, all these lists, etc., of that cinephiles do, and which I also resist. But then in the end, you think, okay, better to, because they're nice, good people who want to help the advance of art cinema, and so why be snobbish and say, well, not for me. Oh yes, and then I thought, like, to ask something like, name the last 10 films that produced an epiphany would be more interesting than to say, well, what are the best films, because that's such a generic, impossible question. And the other is personal, but still more interesting for maybe to share.
When I saw Hard to Be a God, it was like in 2000, I believe 13, 14, I'm not sure.
15, 16. Yeah.
I saw it in a small theater in Bogota that it disappeared because of the pandemic. But I remember that I saw it before a Colombian film, and maybe but I'm sure that you know, or maybe you know, that it's The Embrace of the Serpent, I believe that it was translated. And it was an intense transition from one another, because it was that dream-like experience, and after that, this it's like exhausting film, because I saw it and I felt the camera, like those close-ups, the movement, the sound.
The focus is not on the front, but on the back,
and you see the chicken's legs when they're hanging.
Exactly.
And I remember that I hated the experience, but now that you tell me that, I also remember that it was something that changed for me, because this can sound like something that everyone says once in a while, but I had never seen something like that, and I was really aware of that sensation. And after that, I have always tried to remember what was the feeling that I felt that day, and also how can I define the things that I do not like, because it's sometimes, I believe, it's easier to talk about what you love, but to put the point at what you really don't like, or you hate, or you dislike, it's something a little bit harder sometimes. And that also led me to ask you this, is how do you talk with other people about cinema? Because sometimes thinking about the idea of hard academic concepts, or I find it not so easy to engage in a conversation.
But this very much depends on who you're talking with, which also has always in my work been very important, because if you work for, now I work for the Dutch Film Fund, I mean, which doesn't mean that I changed or my ideas about cinema changed, but still I do, my output is very different, because this is what the nature of the work is. So with Rotterdam also, it was it was partly about, let's say, very personal preferences and ideas, but at the same time you put yourself in, you are a programmer with the Rotterdam Film Festival, you have a certain idea, well, what would be good for the festival, and this is what you. So when you talk about film, this is also the case. You talk from a certain point of view to somebody else. With so for many years, if I would have to explain what my line of work was to my mother or sister or whatever, they would go blank, and so but they would know what a film was, of course, because they so. But then to explain to them what you really do, this is not so easy. At least you very quickly realize that that this is not so interesting for them. So for instance, with some colleagues that I worked with for a long time, then you can forget about all the bullshit about how to. You go very straight to the point. One, whether you think the filmmaker is any good, and then you can point out a bit why, but it's mostly then talking becomes sharing. Because I don't want to impose sometimes I do, but certainly not officially. I don't want to impose my analysis of a certain film on the film, because in a way that's up to the next viewer to see. So the nature of my work as a programmer was very much to offer things, and but as a film critic, it's already different, because then because as a programmer you basically you look for what's interesting and or new or special or good, but not for even if you realize the part where the film fails, this is what you ignore, because this is not a reason why you think you want to show it, because you don't want to show the 10 best films of all time. This is not why you're a programmer. So you look for the things that make it. But as a critic, you have to point out for your readers where a film fails also. As a programmer, you can escape that nasty bit of criticism.
Yeah, I'm getting enemies.
Exactly, yeah. So I don't like to have enemies, even if it's impossible in this world not to have, because some people do like to have enemies, so they pick you. But other than that...
I believe that sometimes what happens is that they also take a critic like by heart, but well, then again I ask, but the film is theirs, how they are not going to take it like so personal. But in the end, I also, with a festival as well, you need to step aside and believe that what you share with the other, it's outside of your reach right now, and all the interpretation is going to be made up by the others, and your intentions in the end are going to be diluted in the work you do. So I believe sometimes...
But it is important to make sure that the filmmaker is not, let's say, is not stepped in the back for some reason. So you have to be very careful in making sure the filmmaker is safe in that respect. Even if people can criticize him, they can say, we walk out, etc. But once a festival makes the decision to show something, they should also defend their choice.
Keep their ground, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's also true, because no, I in the end we programmed that person because it was, no, that's horrible. We need to...
but it happens.
It happens?
Yeah. Not. I don't think Rotterdam did it much, but in general it happens. Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah, it also depends, I believe, the country, some quota that you need sometimes to cover, or other issues, political issues, in fact, or maybe that they're also at hand with those problems. I was also wondering and thinking about your love or passion, or maybe I'm wrong, with certain films and certain countries that come from Asia, particularly from China. But I have not to tell me, well, I saw this movie, but what's in general that it's appealing to you?
The nature of my let's say specialties, as if they are special, because there are real specialists who know who speaks Chinese, who really only do Chinese cinema, for instance, or be a part of it. Those are the real specialists, and some of them are very smart. But for me, it was work in the first place. So, so yes, I have let's say certain cinemas are closer to me than others, but it's not that I don't like that I have a particular love for Chinese or South Korean or Korean cinema, or even Latin American cinema, which are also. But I dealt with those in my work. Okay, so what happened? Also, nothing heroic in terms of what happened is Simon Field left the festival. Another story. Then Sander and Hamer, who was together with Simon already festival director, became the only festival director, which meant that she would not have time to do as much programming as Simon could do. So she asked a few of the programmers to more, in a way, she offered some of the programmers more room to. So then the question was how to divide, because Simon would do everything and we would help him basically.
Okay.
So then the question was how to make sure that because my ego was not so big, but some of my colleagues had big egos, so you have to divide a bit the world. Then probably my let's say the one's in terms of Asia, one colleague who was very good, but also not that I would. But I also thought it would be a very bad idea for Ivar to, let's say, to have him do all of Asia. So, but he, for instance, he was not interested in Latin America. He just wanted to go to Southeast Asia and Japan, etc. So I said, no, I don't. You can't have China or Korea and Japan, etc. It was like a game of risk. But I had already also, for other reasons, committed to overview at least the programming of Spain, Latin America, Portugal, and then very soon also Italy, and so Scandinavia, because I had good friends there. So the question, why don't you do Scandinavia? But I also insisted to that I do China and Korea, which and I then especially Korea. I had many good friends. China is more difficult because it's not that I don't have good friends, but the political situation in China has always been very complicated and demands a lot of expertise. So I quite quickly worked with a Canadian programmer who actually lived in Beijing when we started to work with him, and then to more or less do the groundwork for me, because to do China is too complicated to do within you can't do it in a week or so and go to Beijing and then so it needs more work than that for a festival like Rotterdam. So also nothing heroic, just a game of risk that I won. So I got most of the world, but also most of the work.
Well, but it was an endeavor that in the end it was quite gratificating, I believe. And when I read and when I hear you talking about it, I can notice the passion and something in the end. I believe that we cannot say that all works that you developed your whole life are going to be gratifying at all. Sometimes something to find something in particular.
In a way, it's the same thing with all the, let's say, the thematic programs that I did over the years, and sometimes in cooperation or in collaboration with a colleague or with a guest curator. So I proposed the program to the festival director, who says, after some hesitation, yes. And then it's a bit about size and about budget and what you can do with it. But still, we get to go ahead. And then Gabe is in Sao Paulo at the time. And so he managed, so in a way, it's only in certain stages that I'm really, let's say, doing the editing of the program. But the hard work, arranging with the Cinemateca to do new prints of certain films, etc., which is the most of the work is in that case done by the guest curator then. So sometimes, but only how it looks to the outside world, maybe it's different. I don't know, so all the programming work that I did was always in a certain context of sometimes a very problematic context, working with some things in the festival that were difficult, and sometimes in a very inspiring and helpful context where it's, let's say, where it seems as if the programmer did something very good, but what you did is just say yes, thank you.
Except from films, in the end, just yes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, that sometimes happens. I
Yeah.
feel. And just to wrap up a little bit, I just wanted to ask you about the idea of festivals itself. Like,
Yeah.
how do you see them right now, and the purpose of the idea of having these kind of spaces now that you've been here also, and that you left
Yeah.
Rotterdam? How
Yeah.
do you see it, and is there something that you find attractive still or important, or in the end? There's like a cloud surrounding these ideas for the festivals
Yeah.
itself.
I think there's always it's hard to say something like really general, make a big statement about state of festivals. Often it's the smaller, local, passionate ones that help reinstating or revitalizing the belief in these types of events, more so than the famous big ones where everybody wants to go. Think the position of festivals relates very much to new digital ways of distribution, of communicating. Festivals used to be, at some point, like this almost utopian place where people would gather in a certain nice environment. Which then would exclude Rotterdam in winter, because some people would complain. But then Locarno could also be very wet, and then maybe Rotterdam is more comfortable than Locarno. Anyway, but places like that where people who love cinema and filmmakers gather and they form some sort of community and these for a while this was I think very almost a reality, but then this also very quickly turned into something like where every place I went, I would meet the same people
Okay.
who would be, let's say, in the end, deciding together which films would go where, so then if you would find, like many of let's say of the discoveries or of the new films I would find through not many, but a lot. I don't know percentages, but for instance, through my involvement with the Hubert Bals Fund, where you have a chance to really find filmmakers when they are just starting, when they don't have a film yet even, and then the idea is then to lure them to Rotterdam, to come to Rotterdam, and sometimes they would have to go to Cannes to start. It's fine, but still to connect these filmmakers to the festival. But then it becomes competitive, which is like a very destructive thing within a shared love for cinema. It becomes commercial, or at least there are commercial or business related issues that deal with how things are, how you can treat a filmmaker or a film, how is that related to the network that the festival has, or the interests of the distributors or sales agents. So then it becomes this political game that destroys this utopian idea of everybody gathering to celebrate beautiful new cinema. And so in that respect, let's say digitalization has been, of course, it has had made many things possible. But it's also been a very destructive force for a certain approach to festivals. So currently, I think festivals have the problems of festivals are in a way the problems of our times. That they also face, let's say, the polarization of political or activist ideas, and not a welcoming thing of sometimes, but really, if you don't subscribe to this particular explanation of then. And these festivals, they have to navigate this. On the one hand, because somehow it's about money also. There's no escaping that. You can't do something without money, and there's very few things these days. Some things you can do without money. I'm not sure where this goes.
No. I actually you took it quite well, and there were some great ideas. And in the end, I believe that festivals are like a kind of utopia, or some festivals, even the small ones, start with that idea.
Exactly. So you can see it also in Cinemancia. It has somehow a utopian heart. So, in its selection and its approach to cinema and to the audience.
Okay. Well, that's it for today, Gerwin.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time, all your help with this talk with me, the conference, the movies you have shared, and also all the passion and love you have gave us is really kind and really appreciated.
My pleasure.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.